People who were in a coma, what surprised you after waking up? It was October 16th, 2001. I was in a coma for 16 weeks in a New York hospital. I woke up and 2 hours later looked out my hospital window. I looked to where the Twin Towers were supposed to be. Imagine my surprise when all I saw was crews of people cleaning up rubble from the September 11th attacks. A good friend of our family went into a coma for half a year. Finally, when he woke up, he was stunned why his wife looked so old. He actually lost the last 15 years of his memory. He knew he had 2 children, but they were babies and he didn't even know about his 3rd child. And the memory never came back. He skipped from no mobile phones to smartphones to laptops. Everything was new to him. Being stuck in early 90s, but actually being in the 2000s, there was a lot of change to handle. But learning you missed all your children growing up was the hardest for him. Back in the 90s, my great-grandfather had a stroke. He was in a coma for 3 weeks, and when he woke up, he could not speak English. All he could speak was the Choctaw Indian language. He had learned it when he was a kid because his family lived right near a Choctaw reserve, and he played with a lot of those kids. He spoke it fluently at that time, but forgot it over his life to where he couldn't remember any of it by this time. This went on for around 10 days, and then he woke up from a night's sleep and could suddenly speak only English again, not remembering a word of Choctaw. He was also able to repeat verbatim every conversation that had been held in the room that he was in. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. I was in a coma for 9 days. When I woke up, I was still on a ventilator. When they took me off the ventilator, my body didn't remember to breathe on its own. I literally had to relearn how to breathe. Took me a few days. I had no natural sense for how long or deeply to inhale, how long to hold it, how long to exhale. I had to put all my mental focus towards breathing. It was really weird. I'm now manual breathing, so thanks for that. Don't forget to blink. I was in a coma for 4 days. When I woke up, everyone was talking about the baby boy I had. I had lost my long-term memory and didn't even remember being pregnant. I delivered my son via C-section at 29 weeks. All this was due to me having Crohn's disease. I found out after I woke up. My colon had ruptured during my pregnancy. My husband said I was talking like a child when I first woke up. After a couple of days, I got my long-term memory back. So my son was what surprised me. I was in a coma for 4 days from bacterial meningitis. When I woke up, I was completely deaf. I had to communicate with my parents and doctors with a notepad and pen. Some hearing gradually returned in my left ear, but the right ear is still 100% deaf to this day. About 20 years ago, my cousin had a severe head injury from a fall. He was about 20 at the time. He was in a coma for almost 4 weeks. When he woke up, he fairly quickly discovered that his memory was eidetic. He could repeat entire conversations back word for word and even tell you the date and time you said something. Also, he could memorize images with just a few seconds glance. His memory is still eidetic today. It's really annoying. Whenever he reminds me of something I said in the past, usually something I can't even remember, I suggest that we hit him in the head again. My cousin was in a coma cause of a motorcycling accident. When he woke up, it's like he was transported back in his younger days. Acts and talks like a kid. He's better now after about 7 years, though there's still something off with the way he speaks. He stutters and talks fast, like how children do when they're excited. He has gotten talkative too. The most serious thing that surprised him when he woke up was the fact that he has a daughter of his own. My wife was in a coma, 2 weeks medically induced. When she woke, she had very wrong memories. They were all based on conversations people had while in the room with her. For example, she thought they flew her to Washington, D.C. for treatment. While she was in a coma, my father-in-law mentioned how he just flew back into town from D.C. on a work trip. Somehow she overheard this while out, and her brain interpreted it to mean she flew to D.C. Even after we explained to her the reality of where she was, it took days for her to come to terms with reality. I wasn't really in a coma, but I remember when I woke up from having my appendix removed, I couldn't read. I was 13 at the time, and I loved to read books, so I wasn't illiterate or anything. I could see fine too, I just wasn't able to read. It only lasted for a few minutes, but it was very weird. My nephew, 14, was in a medically induced coma for over 3 months. During that time, he had lost about 30% of his body weight as his muscles atrophied. His first remark upon seeing himself for the first time was, "Did you forget to feed me?" Which was incredibly hard to hear since his family had sat crying at his bedside every moment he was unconscious. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. Thanks a lot for your donations.